Ну что ж, мы ждем еще одну минутку и начнем здороваться, и начнем работать. Ну что ж, время начинать. Доброе всем утро, уважаемые коллеги, партнеры, друзья, здравствуйте. Меня зовут Калинина Ирина, я собственник школы Септолог и ее академический директор. Школа в городе Севастополе. У нас все еще продолжается лето, у нас теплое море, солнце, фрукты и все остальные прелести жизни. А мы сегодня, я хочу начать с того, что всех поздравляю с началом нового учебного года. Понимаю, что, наверное, это такой нелегкий праздник, но тем не менее, всех нас с этим поздравляю. Мы вернулись в классы, мы делаем свою работу. И в этом таком переменчивом сегодня мире, когда все достаточно тревожно, не очень-то понятно, что нас ожидает завтра, в этом мире есть одно постоянное – это наше стремление учиться профессии, совершенствоваться в ней. Именно поэтому вот мы через 5 дней встречаемся в Севастополе на очной конференции, на офлайн конференции «Круг». Очень ждем тех, кто к нам приезжает, грустим по тем, кто к нам не доезжает по разным причинам. Вот осталось всего 5 дней. Ну, а для всех остальных, кто по разным причинам приехать не смог, безусловно, мы для того, чтобы наша конференция не потеряла ни в контенте, ни в количестве участников, вот мы сегодня собираем такую встречу онлайн. И будем иметь возможность послушать целое созвездие из 5 спикеров, молодых, талантливых преподавателей. Они будут делиться с нами своей методической мудростью. Ну, а уже 5 дней спустя мы встречаемся и говорим о профессии дальше уже очно. Ну что ж.
Еще у нас есть 8 минут до того, как к нам присоединится первый спикер, поэтому если у вас вдруг есть какие-то вопросы о круг, о прекруг, о том, как все это происходит, мы будем рады на них ответить. Ну и прежде всего нам, конечно, хочется сказать большое спасибо спикерам, которые согласились в субботу, в свой выходной день, поделиться с опытом, рассказать об обучении письму, потому что надо сказать, что, наверное, это один из самых сложных аспектов. Мы сегодня будем говорить и о малышах, и о взрослых, и об обучении взрослых детей. В общем-то, еще ждем, и в 11:10 к нам присоединится первый спикер. Мы ждем ваши вопросы в чате, мы их видим.
Да, я хотела сказать, что, к сожалению, мы работаем в формате стрим, но, тем не менее, этот формат предполагает, что вы, хотя и не можете сказать что-то голосом, вы можете задать свой вопрос, вы можете обязательно дать комментарий тому, что вы слышите во время выступления. Мы очень ждем этих откликов для того, чтобы сегодняшняя встреча была еще более эффективна и полезна всем ее участникам.
Ну, пока мы ждем первого спикера, я хочу ее представить. Это Екатерина Редькина. Я думаю, что многие о ней слышали. Спикер многих конференций в сфере ELT. Екатерина – психолог, преподаватель английского языка, teacher-trainer, обладатель международных квалификаций TKT, CELTA, Delta, Fulbright. И на прикруг Екатерина осветит тему psychological aspects of teaching and writing. Мы были очень рады, что Екатерина выбрала именно этот аспект, потому что о нем мы почему-то говорим мало, хотя мы все учим техники, да, письма, говорим об орфографии, о стилистике и так далее, о структуре письма, но мало разговариваем о психологических аспектах. И вот буквально через 6 минут Екатерина к нам присоединится и поделится. Вот я вижу, что Екатерина уже нас смотрит.
Пока мы ждем, напомню, да, что мы работаем сегодня 4 часа, вот, поэтому устраивайтесь поудобнее, заварите себе вкусный кофе, пусть день будет и приятным, и полезным, да, и действительно тема writing одна из самых сложных, все преподаватели это знают, и каждый эти сложности решает по-своему, давайте будем обмениваться мудростью. Да.
Если вдруг у вас возникают вопросы по расписанию, посмотреть его можно в нашей группе TikTok Expert. Я напоминаю, что с 13:10 до 13:40 у нас предусмотрен перерыв. В первой части мы послушаем 3 доклада, затем будет получасовой перерыв, и затем завершим конференцию еще 2 докладами.
Если спикер готов, то можно.
Сейчас мы уточним.
Ну что ж, спикер уже прям вот на старте. Хочется пожелать нам всем удачи. Good luck to everyone, and off we go.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. Okay. Hi, my name is Ekaterina Redkina, and today I will talk about psychology of writing. Okay, let us open the presentation. Okay, you should be seeing the presentation now. Okay, just a second. So, I will talk about psychological aspects of teaching writing, because originally I'm a psychologist, and this is my first education. But I've been teaching English for more than 10 years already, and I've worked with different ages, different students, and today I will be presenting both as a teacher and as a psychologist. So what I would like to talk about is a very big, area. And there are lots of books written on the topic of, psychology of writing, but most of the books would be dealing with, research, and books I found that's more on the scientific study of, psychological aspects of writing, what psychological processes are involved, and so on. I don't think you're interested in that. What I want to talk about is the sort of psychological aspects of writing when you teach it, and this presentation will be mostly based on my education and my experience as a teacher. So maybe you've noticed that a lot of students are not, so big fans of writing, and they are not loving writing. Well, at least over the years I've been teaching, I haven't seen so many students that would, embrace writing and say that, yes, we love it and we are ready to do it every time. And when I asked teachers and students over the years, like, why don't you like writing? Why you think your students don't like writing so much? Usually there are very random ideas. Maybe if you ask yourself now, why my students do not like writing so much, either at home or in class, I don't know what comes to your mind. Well, many teachers would say that students don't have ideas, they don't know what to write about, and that's probably true. Many teachers would say they don't know how to structure their texts, and that's why they don't like it, because they don't have enough experience or don't have enough discipline to do it. Lack of language, this is usually this comes from students who say that, well, I don't know what to write about, or I don't know how to say it, and it frustrates me, and I don't like it. I don't like to use the dictionary, or my teacher is unhappy with my language. What I've noticed is that very often students don't understand why they need to do it because the teacher told them, but, well, is this the valid, reason? Obviously, maybe that should have been the first point. A lot of teachers would say that, and students would say that, well, writing is boring. There isn't anything fun about writing, and they don't see what is so much interesting about it. Many students don't like to see their papers giving back with a lot of correction and a lot of red ink. Even if you don't use red ink, green ink, it doesn't matter. So maybe some of them cannot, sit still if we talk about young learners, and they need to spend time, they need to plan their time wisely at home. It all ends up, rushing to writing 5 minutes before the class. Of course, the results are not so good. So I'm pretty sure these are not only reasons why students are not, involved in writing so much happily. But what I was thinking, that let us structure this a little bit. And when I was thinking why writing seems so difficult, I thought that probably there are some subjective reasons that teachers have and that students have. And there are some objective reasons. So when we teach writing, probably we should be thinking about these two areas. So let us quickly look at them, at these 2 points. And then finally, we'll talk about sort of recommendations, what we can do as teachers in the classroom or outside the classroom to help our learners. Subjective aspect would definitely include 2 parties. That would be you as a teacher and your learner. Let's start with the learner. So subjectively, that's what your students feel or think or believe, what might be happening. They really could be afraid of making mistakes. And if this is true, probably you need to pay attention to that and think how you can deal with it. Many learners might think that it's pretty boring. This is true. This is their subjective idea. You might be thinking, as a teacher, that your task is pretty interesting and that, oh, that's an interesting topic, let's write it. For them, it might be not interesting at all. Learners might think that, why should we write? It's useless. I don't see the point. Teenagers, I teach 2 groups of teenagers now. Very often they're like, why, Kate, please don't ask us to write. We don't like it. Why? Why do we need to do it? And I try always to give them a reason, why? Because, let's do this, because you might need it. It's quite difficult to justify, because just saying you need to write because writing is one of the skills, well, it doesn't prove anything to the students usually. Well, at least teenagers. For adults, for example, not having a clear purpose why to write could be one of the reasons, because for them, everything they do should be connected to their, real life, to their real life objectives. Obviously, the learner might be thinking that they have no ideas or few ideas, or their ideas are not very interesting, or they don't want to share. As a teacher, I've noticed that very often, again, we as teachers give writings to share opinions, sort of an essay. And we think that this is the easiest type of writing because, well, you have an opinion, just share. Sometimes they don't have an opinion. I mean, teenagers, for example, or younger teenagers, they don't know what to share because there is, well, basically nothing to share. And as I said, no clear purpose because they don't understand why to use it, sort of, useless. Interesting thing, when we think about writing, we think what learners think, what learners want, need, or something. I here want you to think about us, teachers, subjectively, what we have here. I was thinking a lot about this and I asked my colleagues, and it's interesting that teachers have a lot of beliefs, right? And we bring these beliefs into the classroom. And they are mostly unconscious, and you don't think, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that. Very often you do something, you don't even know why, because you think it's right. So beliefs about writing sometimes could be the problem to teach it, surprisingly. Not many teachers, but some teachers would think that writing as a skill is very important. That's true. But we don't have enough time at the lesson. We have other stuff to do. And I need to help my students with other things like listening, reading, speaking. Without me, they can't do it. Whereas writing can be easily done at home. That's why writing goes, usually as a homework. Is it really so true that writing should be done at home? Just think about it. Do you believe that writing cannot be dealt with in the classroom? When was the last time you spent time in the classroom, like the whole lesson maybe, or half of the lesson, to teach your students writing, to scaffold them, to give them different strategies, to play with different maybe genres, and to help them to brainstorm ideas and so on? When was the last time you did it? For me personally, it was quite a long time ago. Many teachers personally think that writing is boring, but maybe they will never say about it. Teachers might say that writing is a formality, well, when will my students need writing? Well, for exams, so they need to write an essay, that's it. There are more important things. In real life, they don't need it so much. Maybe you don't think it openly. Maybe it's unconscious. What happens if you even slightly believe this way, you unconsciously spend less time on writing than on other things because, well, it's not so important, or they can manage themselves. And I think a very important thing is that we as teachers don't write. We don't write essays, we don't write articles. Well, maybe most of us now write blog posts on Instagram or Facebook in English. Okay, that's true, but that's a very specific genre. And do we often teach this particular genre in class? Probably not. What we want our students to do, have we ever done it? Or if we have, how often we do it? Is it like, I would say, are we good at it? Sometimes when I see the topic that my students need to write about, I'm thinking, poor students. If I was given this topic, I would know what to write about. So I try to, project what I give to them, to myself, and think, okay, can I deal with that? Can I deal with it successfully? And how can I help my students, Because I don't have the skill of writing, honestly. I do write on my Instagram, but that's probably it. I have my own diary, but it's in Russian, right? And it's very different from what we teach. So objectively, what I thought of, objectively also students might have very few ideas on what to write about. So you probably will notice it because they don't know what to say, or their ideas are sort of running in circles, they are repeated, and you're thinking, well, why I read it again and again? You've said it earlier, right? So few ideas. You will probably agree with me that students are very often lacking in language, and that's an objective thing. Maybe if your students had more ideas to choose from, more language, like sort of a vocabulary bank to choose from when they write, this could have been easier for them. Objectively, an objective aspect is also that, and that's sort of obvious, pupils, students, and generally all ages, they can't control both the language and the content. It's very difficult. When you're writing, and if you try it yourself, you will notice that usually ideas come first and the meaning, right, comes first, and you're not thinking about the form or the shape you're putting this meaning into. So probably you need to deal with it in several steps, when first you deal with the content and the meaning, and then you incorporate better language in it. You're helping with the language. What I've noticed, and this is a fact, I think, that students cannot plan. They cannot plan what they are writing about. I have a funny story. Last term, like last year, academic year, I was teaching my teens, and I asked them, okay, guys, I want you to plan your writing at home, because in class you will be writing, and there was sort of an essay they wanted them to do in class. So they created their plans at home, and they came to class to show me. The plans look like this. Plan. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, main part. Number 3, conclusion. That was the plan that one of my students created. At that point, I realized that, well, planning should be dealt with separately, because apparently make up a plan doesn't mean much to this particular student. And obviously, plan is something that should be helping. That plan couldn't help with anything. Also, a very important thing I've noticed is that students are more reluctant to write if they are not interested in the topic, or if they cannot relate themselves to it. I know that in exams, I don't know, let's take Russian exams, state exam, or let's take Cambridge, very often topics are not relevant, and that's fine. I understand this, but why not to take the same topic and maybe change it a little bit so they feel more sort of personalized attitude to the topic? So instead of writing about something that is very distant, ask them, how can we reformulate it so you feel more interested in it? I do it, and I don't think it's a problem, because you still deal with the structure, with the language. You don't change the topic completely. You sort of reformulate it so they feel they know what to write about. Again, with teenagers, it could be sort of giving them choice, and they appreciate it, because if they don't like it and the teacher doesn't care much about it, well, that's not maybe so good. If you ask them, guys, does it seem like an interesting topic? Well, I know it's not so interesting. Maybe we can slightly change it, or let's think together how to make it more personal, more interesting. Also, and this is very important thing I would like to mention, is that very often students, when they write, they do it very, let's say, superficially, without deeper going into the process, because they know that assessment will be super easy or superficial as well. So make sure that your assessment system is clear and understandable, because very often they get just a mark, 5, 4, A, B, I don't know which system you use. Maybe it's a 10-point system, then they get 10 or 8 or 9 or whatever. They don't know why they get it. Yes, you mark the mistakes normally, right? But again, does it mean that 10 mistakes leads to this point, or 5 mistakes leads to that point? Do they really understand how you assess your students? Okay, I'm being told that my presentation is on the first slide. That's interesting. I am actually sliding it, and I've been sliding it all the time. Okay, what can we do here? I'm sorry, just a second. I was sure that everything is working. Okay, you see it now. Okay. So you see it now, right? We talked about subjective reasons and objective reasons. Okay. We talked about learners' subjective aspect, like fear of making mistakes, having a few ideas that it's boring, maybe no purpose. We also talked about the teacher, right? Teachers' attitudes and beliefs about writing, that maybe writing shouldn't be done in class, and so on. Also, what I was talking about here is that assessment system, right? As I said, assessment system may not be very clear and may not be very understandable. Another point that I would like to mention is that feedback that you give to your students on your writing may be not very constructive or useful. Think what kind of feedback you give. How often do you do it? Is it individual feedback, or it's just, you know, to the whole class? I know if you have 20, 30 people in your classroom, it's not so easy to give individual feedback, but writing sort of presupposes it, right? I also teach at university, and we do have very big groups, about 25 people there. And when I give writings, I do spend a lot of time to give individual feedback to my to every student. And feedback is usually based on the assessment system that you created. So they know how you assess, and your feedback is based on that. And you say that, you know, your content was great. However, I'm not happy with your organization because, you know, you are lacking in linking words. As for your grammar, this, and that. I've also noticed, and that's sort of coming back to what I've mentioned before, students very often have no or low intrinsic, like internal motivation why to do it. And this is something we probably need to deal with. Bedtime management, that's another thing. And bedtime management could be about, you know, writing itself. It could be generally bedtime management because they think that, oh, writing will be quick, you know, it's like 5 minutes. And usually they do it before the class because they don't know how actually long it takes. Maybe there are other factors that I haven't thought of, but from my experience, this is the list. And what kind of solutions, if I may say so, I might suggest here? Well, based on, you know, problems, subjective, objective reasons. First of all, find out what are the lacunas of your students, what are they lacking in, and spend time on scaffolding your students. Scaffolding could be very different, right? We need to support our students in their ideas. So maybe, what about brainstorming ideas with them? Creating mind map maybe on the board with ideas, putting ideas on post-it notes, and then again putting them on the board or on the desk. If you're teaching online now, like I'm teaching online now, I hope we'll turn to face-to-face, but it could be creating mind map of ideas online, because there are certain sites and programs that help to do that. Also, next step, as remember we were saying that it's difficult to think about meaning and form at the same time. That's why when you thought of what you're writing about, the ideas, why not to try to create a mind map of language that will help to express these ideas. So we often do that. We have sort of branch with certain idea, and then I ask my students to brainstorm what kind of language, grammar, vocabulary they think they will need or they want to use here. Probably you will agree that normally writing is connected to the topic we study. So you don't give very, you know, abstract writings unless it's for exams. Usually writing, if it's in the course book, it will be connected with the topic. Let's say you study clothes, then you will be, you know, writing something about clothing. So I ask my students to brainstorm words from recent units and think of recent words we studied, so they can a little bit show off and use these words when they write. Because students very often are not sure about the structure, especially if it's a new genre like article, or I don't know, well, with emails they're usually fine. Let's say article, or if you decided to try any other writing, maybe a story, they might be unsure how this genre structurally and linguistically different from all others. So maybe here you need to come in and discuss the model and try to compare like why this is a story and this is an article, what makes them so different. Remember, I was giving example of my student not being able to create a plan, and I would say that plan is one of the first stages of writing. So staging the writing together first would be probably a good point to do. So you think of planning, then they create a draft, then you teach them how to improve this draft, maybe with different color coding, maybe with peer correction, maybe with giving them, let's say, time limit, and you say, okay, guys, I give you 3 minutes, I put my timer, try to correct the mistakes you find, hurry up, then we do something else. So you choose any method, so they will have to deal with their draft again and improve it. And they can improve it in terms of content or in terms of language. I would definitely start teaching more writing in class if you're not a big fan of that. There are 3 main writing approaches. You might be familiar with them or not. Product, process, and genre writing. And if you are not a big fan of teaching writing, because maybe you don't know how to do it or you don't feel confident, then it's a good point to start from, to Google that simply and figure out, okay, how do I stage my writing lesson if I choose product approach or process or genre? You can always mix them up, obviously, but this will give you a starting point how to stage your lesson. Please work with your students' motivation, because as we discussed, students are not always happy about what they write and why. Personalizing the topic, letting them formulate the topic, as I mentioned earlier, maybe